pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Dale Macklin,
Here.
Jerry Quirian,
Here.
Ray Karen,
Here.
Joseph Gravel,
Here.
Jeff West,
Here.
Lee Trahan,
Here.
and Peter Drapo.
Here.
Okay, and is there any disclosure of conflicts of interest this evening? None? And I just need to read a brief statement. Any person wishing to verbally address the council on any matter before it may do so, provided permission and first obtained from the council chair. Each person addressing the council shall stand and give the person's name and address in an audible tone of voice for the record, and shall limit remarks to the time allotted by the council chair. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a body and not to any member thereof. No person other than the council and the person having the floor shall be permitted to enter into any discussion, either directly or through a counselor, without the permission of the council chair. No question shall be asked a counselor except through the council chair. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, who shall become boisterous while addressing the council, shall be forthwith by the council chair barred from further audience from this council, unless permission to continue be granted by the majority vote of the council. Side conversations within the audience will not be tolerated. Okay, so for minutes, I have none this evening. I apologize for not getting last month's out to you. And under communications, we have a presentation by Wright Pierce on the Chaffee Brook project.
Are we connected to the Zoom call?
I can't get the Zoom up. You're gonna have to do this without a Zoom.
Okay. Well, I guess we can go through the presentation, but unfortunately we won't have anything to show folks.
Nothing, put a thumb drive in?
I can put a thumb drive in this and see if I can bring it up for you. Have you got a thumb drive with you?
Yep,
Yes, we do.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me take that. Okay, perfect, I got it. Nice. Tell me when you,
Tell you when to.
Yep. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Brand new.
All set?
All set.
Okay. My name is Mike Stein. This here is Corey Lewis. We are with the engineering firm of Wright Pierce out of Topsom. And we're here to give a progress update for the Chaffee Brook pump station. It's been a few years since we have provided a progress, so we're appreciative of the invitation to be able to do this. On the screen, you'll see two pictures. The picture on the left is of the pump station itself, and the picture on the right is an aerial photo. This is at the end of Shafee Brook Road, and the pump station is right along the Kennebec River. The purpose of this pump station, this is a wastewater pump station. It collects the wastewater generated within the town of Winslow, and then it sends it under the river over to Waterville, where it flows to KSTD, Kennebec Sanitary Treatment District, where it gets treated and then discharged back into the Kennebec River. You can advance that slide.
Thank you.
So this is just a overview of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about project drivers. Why are we doing this project? Why are we spending money? We're going to be looking at the schedule updates, where we are with that. And then once we're done with the presentation, we'll entertain questions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Corey.
So again, thanks everybody for giving us the opportunity to talk about this. So as Mike mentioned, I'm going to talk briefly about the project drivers, not to take too long on this. So one of the main project driver for this particular project is the combined sewer overflow obligation. So the town of Winslow, for those who aren't familiar, the town of Winslow has a combined sewer overflow discharge permit with Maine DEP, and that allows the town to discharge to the Kennebec River when the sewer system becomes overwhelmed as a result of tied-in roof drains, cellar drains, that sort of thing. And that goes back to historically there being a combined sewer and stormwater system in the town. And in order to have regulatory protection and obtaining that license and legally being allowed to discharge, the town has to maintain what's called a combined sewer overflow master plan, which is essentially a long-term plan that says these are the steps we're going to take to eventually reduce the volume that's getting discharged from these overflow points in the sewer system and eventually eliminate them. So that was developed in the 1990s and has been updated several times. The most recent update was in 2018 and was prepared by Snowden Consulting Engineers, and part of the recommendations from the CSO Master Plan update from 2018 was to look at upgrading the pumping capacity of the Chaffee Brook pump station in order to essentially push more flow across the river over to the treatment facility over in Waterville, and thereby doing so reducing the frequency at which the water will overwhelm the sewer system and discharge out the CSO points. So there's a regulatory requirement there. That's the bottom line, is that there's a regulatory requirement to move the project forward as part of that discharge license with DEP. If you want to advance the slide. So another project driver is aging infrastructure and building code related issues. So as part of the evaluation that Wright Pierce completed, when we looked at increasing the pumping capacity, we also did a comprehensive evaluation of the existing conditions at the pump station. And there are a number of issues that were identified as part of the evaluation. The bottom line is there's a lot of deferred maintenance. The pump station was constructed in the 1970s, around the time of the Clean Water Act. And a lot of that infrastructure that is there is still original to the station's construction and does need to be addressed. So these are just some examples. In some of these pictures, you have process piping down in the pump room on the upper left-hand picture. That's original to the station, showing signs of wear, starting to get leaking at those. You have the pumps that need to be replaced as part of the capacity upgrades. In the middle photo, you can see that's a standby generator. That's original to the station as well, and the town's already had issues with that, where that has failed at more than one occasion when called to duty during a utility power failure. So that upgrading that speaks to the the long-term viability of the station, and being able to reliably be able to pump the wastewater over to Waterville. And the example in the upper right-hand corner is just just an example of OSHA-related issues that need to be addressed at the station. And I got a couple more if you want to advance the slide there. Again, just a couple more, just looking at these of building code-related issues that were originally grandfathered in right now as part of the building code, but once this upgrade happens, they will need to be addressed. Shared airspace between, sources of potentially flammable materials like methane, through leaking pipes and electrical equipment where there's a source of, sparking source. So these are just the types of things that we looked at, we identified, and were incorporated into the design for the project that need to be addressed. Slide. So to recap, we've got regulatory obligations, to have legal protection to be able to continue to discharge when the sewer systems become overwhelmed. We have building code related issues that need to be addressed at the station. We also have aging infrastructure that needs to be replaced in order to maintain the long-term viability of the station moving forward. And the third main project driver is flood protection. So the Chaffee Brook Pump Station is currently within the FEMA 100-year floodplain for the Kennebec River. And I know these pictures are kind of small, folks in the audience. What you're seeing here, this is an aerial view. This is an aerial view of the Chaffee Brook Pump Station site. You can see the building here, and we have essentially overlaid an outline of where the 100-year floodplain would be if a 100-year flood event did occur. So you can see that it would essentially inundate the entire site. And then on your right-hand side, with a 100-year flood elevation of 58, this is essentially the depth of the water where the water would be in relation to the station during a 100-year flood event. So as you can see, and this flooding is a concern at the station, and considering the fact that the Chaffee Brook Pump Station, in terms of criticality to the wastewater system in Winslow, it's the most critical piece of infrastructure the town has, because it essentially collects and transports all of the town's sewer flows over to the treatment facility in Waterville. So if that station were to become flooded and inoperable, it would be a risk to human health and the environment. I want to advance the slide. So how do we want to address this? So we looked at a number of options for addressing the flooding concerns, and the simplest option that we selected was dry proofing the station. So essentially creating an impermeable barrier from the solid concrete foundation all the way up to the solid concrete roof, and installing it on the exterior of the building to prevent the water from getting in, to help protect the critical electrical equipment. And protecting that electrical equipment, not only from a best management practices standpoint, this is also a requirement for flood standards and design standards. So FEMA has certain flood design standards that are required to be met in order for the town to be able to purchase a liability insurance or property insurance for the Chaffee Brook Pump Station. And also, these regulatory standards and guidelines are also part of any state and federal funding that would go towards the project. So we looked at this solution for addressing the flood related issues. We ran that by DEP, rural development, the potential funding programs on that. There were no objections raised during the preliminary studies and the permitting phase when we were developing the permits for the project. And then kind of at the 11th hour, unfortunately, when we brought the design to the 90% stage, and we brought it to Maine DEP, USDA Rural Development didn't have any issues. They said, we're all set with the project as is. But Maine DEP said, we interpret our funding program requirements such that preference needs to be given to locating the generator outdoors. And again, I'll stress that when we had gone through the process of developing the plans and developing the permits. DEP was involved all along the way, and they were privy to preliminary drawings and the studies that said we were planning on putting the generator indoors. But unfortunately, kind of at the 11th hour, like I said, DEP said they want the generator outdoors. And the approach they wanted us to take was to essentially fill in a small portion of the floodplain that you saw in the previous slide in order to essentially lift it up out of the floodplain and then install an outdoor generator outdoors outside of the floodplain, and have that remotely located from the station. So obviously with that being happening kind of at the 11th hour, that's kind of an issue. So we brought our concerns to DEP, said, you know, this is, we've been working with you all along here. This is kind of a surprise that you're telling us now at this stage of the design, because we will have to go back and change things at this point. And DEP said, you know, this is our interpretation. We're responsible for interpreting our funding program requirements, and the grant funding that we have made available to the town, which is $1.2 million of grant funding that Wright Pierce has helped the town secure towards the project. They said it's contingent upon the generator being outdoors, essentially. They said it goes outdoors, or we're not gonna offer you the $1.2 million toward the project. So that would mean that $1.2 million would have to be completely bonded towards the project. So at that point, we talked with town staff, and the consensus was it made sense to just make the changes, however unfortunate that of the timing of when they came, to make those changes to the design to locate the generator outdoors in order to be eligible for the $1.2 million rather than foregoing that grant money. So next slide. So I won't get into this because it looks a bit small for folks here in person, but this is essentially the takeaways for this is, as far as the schedule updates, it was a lengthy process, I'll say, to do the permitting for this particular project, the environmental permitting that had to happen in order to do the force main crossing as part of the design. We started in 2020, and by the time we did all the field work that was required of the funding agencies in order to secure the DEP and the Army Corps construction permits that would be needed in order to do the force main crossing, we didn't actually get the final approval from them until the summer of 2022, which allowed us to move forward with the final design and the final applications for the funding. You want to advance the slide? So overlapping that permitting time frame is the preliminary design for the project, because we had to develop, some design decisions had to be made and had to be advanced in order to finalize the permitting for the construction permits for Army Corps and for DEP. So we worked on through the preliminary design and wrapped that up in the late winter, early spring of 2023. And here, I guess I'll say, we've got two phases here on the project. So part of the recommendation when we looked at this was to split the project into essentially two construction phases based on the type of work and the pool of contractors you'd get for each particular type of work. So you had the force main crossing, which could be completed by an earthwork contractor. That was a more specialized towards earthwork contractors. So it made more sense to have that as one construction project separate from the rest of the building upgrades, which is more geared towards a specialized mechanical contractor who is familiar with wastewater pump stations and doing those types of upgrades. So you had two kind of separate projects with it tied into the same project, so we thought it made sense to break it into two phases. So phase one is moved forward at this point, was bid in the late spring of 2023. The low bidder was Wyman and Simpson. The contract has been awarded and the project is advancing at this point, and we expect that construction to be completed. They're starting the in-water work actually this week, and they're expecting to have things substantially complete by the end of the year in 2023. Excuse me. So as I mentioned, we kind of had a pause on phase two, the building upgrades, and we expect now at this point, assuming things move forward and we are going to make the design changes to relocate the generator outdoors, it's looking like design for phase 2, the building upgrades will be wrapped up in the late winter, early spring, and then the project will be put out to bid in the early spring to late spring 2024 timeframe. Given with current lead times for large electrical equipment that you'd have at a wastewater treatment facility, such as the generator, controls for the pump stations, unfortunately, the lead times for those right now that we've been talking with equipment vendors about that, it can be as much as 9 months to 12 months for some of those pieces of equipment. So we expect that because of that, we expect even after we get a contractor on board here later on in the late spring, early summer of 2024, we expect construction to extend through 2025, and really site work probably won't happen until springtime of 2025. So that's, in a nutshell, that's the status on the project as it stands right now. So I appreciate your time on this, and I guess we'll open it up to questions at this point. Yes, sir.
If I may, through the chair, question regarding the generator on the outside of the building.
Yes.
Are you planning on just raising the ground material, or are you planning on putting something, combination steel, concrete, or what's the plan for putting that generator above the floodplain?
So we'll try to do mostly earthwork, but then there has to be some sort of concrete foundation that will be underneath the generator. The generator we can also use if we go with a diesel type generator, which is the current design approach, that it will have an integral fuel tank as well that will allow the generator to be raised that much more, because the tank will essentially sit on top of its own tank. So that will raise the generator further to further protect it and reduce the amount of fill that will need to happen in the wetland, the floodplain.
All right, now also, will there be any kind of covering or canopy over the generator?
So that was one of our concerns why we had originally, when we had looked at the generator upgrades, we wanted to put it inside like the generator is now. There were security concerns. We didn't want people taking pot shots at the generator outdoors. And as far as a canopy outdoors, knowing that we were kind of put on our heels a bit by the comments by DEP, we didn't want to necessarily say we're going to move forward with a bunch of additional upgrades like a canopy or some type of structure over the generator, knowing that was going to add potentially to the cost of the project, where we already had kind of a last minute change on that. So at this point, we haven't finalized whether there will be a canopy or not, but the current thinking is that we would have the generator outdoors in a skin-tight, sound attenuated enclosure, and we'd have it like a chain link perimeter fence around that in order to be conscious of cost, but also having some, the proper protection, an outdoor rated generator.
Okay, thank you.
If I might, through the chair, just a couple of questions. What was it, maybe Paul can answer, what's the frequency of combined sewer overflow over the last couple of years, Paul?
Depending on the year, we probably have 3 or 4 per year.
3 or 4 per year? Okay. And could you just go over really quickly the number of pipes and the size of the pipes that are going across the river?
Sure. So as part of the evaluation, what we looked at in order to minimize the upgrades that would need to happen in terms of the pumps, rather than having to put massive pumps in there, instead what we looked at was installing 2 16-inch parallel force mains under the river, instead of going with one big pipe, because there's several advantages to doing that. One being that you maximize the amount of flow you can get from a smaller pumps by essentially having them run in parallel and having them running to separate parallel. You're essentially creating 2 parallel pump stations within a single building, so that gives you complete redundancy on your pump station. Again, you also get redundancy on the force main itself. So let's say if one of the force mains were to fail in the future, you still have a completely separate force main that you can still operate if one of your force mains were to fail. And part of our plan is there is an existing 12 12-inch force main. We are tying that into the existing design, so the plan will be that that will be available to be reused to provide another layer of redundancy as well, if in the event that one of the force mains could not be used, or both of the force mains could not be used for whatever reason, however unlikely that may be, that would still, the pumps would still be able to, by the use of turning a few valves at the station, still be able to operate that existing 12-inch force main.
Okay, that's all. And the only other really quick question, Paul, was, in the 87 flood, was that did that qualify as a 100-year flood? Was that,
Yeah, I believe the station was underwater.
station was underwater?
Yes, that is the flood of record that established what that flood
Okay,
elevation was.
okay.
Was that building flooded out back then?
Yes.
How long is this renewal of this station here, how long is that expected to last before we have to redo it again?
So the pipes under typical existing, the typical life cycle of the pipes themselves, they'd be 50-plus years. For the pumps, if they are well maintained, you can get anywhere from 25 to 30 years from those. As far as the generator, are roughly the same time frame, 20 years. Electrical equipment's a little bit shorter because, you get software updates, you get technology improvements, so those tend to have a little bit of a shorter lifespan than some of the other stuff. But that being said, a lot of the original equipment at the Chaffee Brook Pump Station, including the MCC, is original. So that was from the 1970s, so it very well could last longer than that, but they typically, the manufacturers won't guarantee past 15 to 20 years for electrical equipment.
Through the chair, what's the material makeup of your pipes?
The pipes we're speccing are HDPE, so high density polyethylene pipes, because they are resistant to chemical attack from if you have like an acidic soil or something like that. It also is doesn't have any joints in it because they literally, it's called butt fusing. They fuse two pieces together and creates a seamless pipe that you can put under there, so you have less chances where you could have leaking at a joint in your piping.
How do they actually accomplish burying the pipe under the bed of the river?
So they have, I wish I had my, if you want to go back.
I've got to put it back in, I took it out.
Oh, okay, that's fine. So how they are planning to do the work is they essentially have constructed a temporary barge that they float out on there, and that is able to hold a excavator with essentially a very long neck on that, and that excavator digs the trench underwater and side casts that downstream of the trench location to minimize the amount of siltation getting kicked up into the river while they do that. And they work their way across and essentially create an underwater trench underwater, and then they bring out the fused pipe. They fuse it and bring it out onto the water. They test it, sink it, and they install what are concrete collars around that, and those concrete collars sink the pipe down. Well, the pipe will sink anyway because they'll fill it with water, and the weight of the water will actually sink it. But the concrete collars provide a measure of anti-flotation and also kind of a stabilizing force as well for the pipe. So they bring it out, they sink it down, and then they'll come back and they'll bury that after the fact.
What's the depth of the area?
So we tried to minimize the amount of excavation because the deeper you go, the more expensive it gets. So when we talked to Army Corps, they said the minimum that they would require would be 3 feet. So we're trying to minimize and not have it too much deeper than 3 feet. It might be a little bit more in some locations just to make sure you don't have a high point, because then you can have an air bubble essentially form at that location, which will prevent the water from pushing through. So it might be a little bit deeper in some locations, but on average, we're going to try to stay at 3 foot depth.
Is that pipe covered
Yes, it will be.
after? Because
Yeah, they will.
think of another
They'll,
flood
right,
coming
they'll, so we have typical pipe bedding that we would have for any excavation that we would do on land. We'll include a layer of riprap over that to provide some scour protection, if there's like floating ice or something like that were to come down the river. And then a layer of natural substrate, which is what the environmental folks said that they they wanted to have basically to put the habitat back that was originally there. So that way it would be conducive for the species that were the fish species that were in the river. Didn't use it.
They're gonna be able to do this without disturbing that other pipe?
Yes, in relation to the river, we're located, I will say 100 to 150 feet downstream of the existing pipe, just to make sure we have adequate clearance there and we aren't gonna run into the existing one.
Last question through the chair. Could you, Ella, maybe sometime in November or December early, organize a site visit? So, I'm just really interested in going down and taking a look and just kind of
One last question through the chair. If I remember correctly, we were talking about doing horizontal boring. Was that just not available or cost prohibitive?
So horizontal directional drilling would actually have been, well, if it was successful, I'll say, would be a cheaper option because it requires less environmental permitting and can be constructed quicker. But that being said, between the stage where we did the evaluation, because originally in the evaluation we said horizontal directional drilling makes sense in this case, because you don't have a lot of ledge underneath the water, so you could potentially, it would be a fairly straightforward drill, so to speak. But that being said, between that time and the time that we started working on the environmental permits, Greater Augusta Utility District basically attempted the exact same project, attempted a wastewater a wastewater pipeline crossing underneath the Kennebec River. And I'll say, the location where they did their project was the subsurface material was exactly the same to what our testing and our subsurface investigations had determined. So you've got the exact same soil conditions in both locations, which is mainly like a cobbly type substrate, a lot of like loose boulders and rocks, that sort of thing. And Greater Augusta attempted to do a horizontal directional drill, and what happened is because of kind of the cobbles and loose material there, for those who aren't familiar with horizontal directional drilling, they essentially they take the drilling machine, they drill through, they inject a slurry that's like a bentonite type slurry in order to, it's almost like a glue or like a stabilizer that holds the boring or the hole open so that they have enough time to then drag the pipe back through the hole for the installation. What happened with Greater Augusta is that the tunnel kept collapsing, essentially. Every time they attempted it 3 different times, and the tunnel collapsed each of the times, and they had what's called a frac out, where that bentonite slurry was ejected out into the river. And then they essentially had to abandon that construction method and add a considerable sunk cost into the construction contract and go back to an open cut excavation, a traditional open cut excavation. With that information in mind, we had talked with the town about that. The decision was made. The more prudent approach would be to just move forward with the open cut excavation to minimize the risk of potentially having the same issue happen. And again, knowing that the subsurface conditions were identical, that there was a risk that if we did horizontal directional drilling, we could have the same outcome where there's collapsing of the tunnel, failure, the environmental impacts of having the bentonite slurry entering the water, and that sunk cost of investing in that, then having to turn around and do what we then decided we would do, which is do the open cut excavation anyway at a considerable additional
The
cost.
gas pipeline, which is about a half a mile up, downriver from where you're doing, they collapsed, at least I know of at least once, and when they were 80 or 90% done with the first boring, and they had to start all over again to do it. So, it probably was a good decision not to try to bore.
Thank you, I'm all set.
One question for you, Paul, and on these 3 or 4 overflow events yearly, How many gallons are we talking per event, roughly,
Some of them are 200 to 300,000 gallons.
of raw sewage?
Mixed sewage is combined with stormwater.
That's been going in the river since 1999?
Been going in the river probably since 1978 when the plant was set up, because we had multiple CSO points. We're down to 2 now.
Correct. Originally, the straight, before the Clean Water Act, the pipes probably went straight into the river.
Correct.
And then when the Clean Water Act passed, they said you can't do that anymore. So towns like Winslow constructed in the 1970s what are called interceptor pipes to essentially intercept that flow going straight to the river. So you have a series of pipelines that run parallel to the river, these long interceptor sewers that carry that waste from those straight pipes down to the Chaffee Brook pump station, and the Chaffee Brook pump station pumps it across the river. Well, that still doesn't, even though you put in those interceptor sewers, it doesn't eliminate those stormwater sources, so those roof drains, cellar drains, perimeter drains, sump pumps, probably were some catch basins originally. I think all the catch basins at this point have been removed at this point, but we're tied in. So you get all that water coming in, the pipes only have so much capacity. So the people who were designing the interceptor sewer said, well, we gotta protect people's basements from flooding out. We gotta protect the new equipment that we're installing here, the pump station. So these were essentially, those CSO structures were essentially fail-safes that were installed as pressure relief locations where when the water got to be too much, rather than flood out somebody's basement with a mixture of raw sewage and stormwater runoff, they put these in to allow it to go out to the river. It's just that in the 1990s, the state of Maine passed legislature that said it's no longer legal to do that unless you're taking steps to eliminate those,
But we've been doing it.
which the town has been implementing, yes, since that
Okay.
legislature.
So with this new system up and running, are we gonna eliminate these overflows into the river?
Well, we can't say with 100% certainty because we don't know, every storm's unique, so you don't know how much storm water you're getting on any given storm. So what we can say is we feel that we'll substantially reduce the volume, and we're hoping that it will eliminate. But typically, the approach is we'll do the upgrades, and I will say the design capacity that is the basis of design for this, the increase in the pumping capacity is not based on like a discharge or the amount of flow that we expect that's coming to the station, because that's variable. That design, that peak flow was based on what KSTD, the Kennebec Sanitary Treatment District, what they told the town of Winslow back a number of years ago. This is how much we can accept from you at the treatment facility before you'll flood us out. So that's what we're doing, is moving the capacity of the station up to the highest amount that KSTD feels comfortable that they can accept at the treatment facility at this time. So we can say we can pump as much as we can and as much as KSTD will be able to take, but we can't say with certainty we'll 100% eliminate the CSOs for all storm events. But it will certainly reduce the frequency and the volume.
I have one question. Paul, how much I&I have we got entering the system? Clean water, what's the percentage of clean water versus the surge?
All of it, 60% clean water probably.
So 50%, we're using up a lot of the capacity just with clean water because of old clay pipes in people's drains.
Mostly, I think, coming from perimeter drains and that type of system
Right.
that we just can't regulate.
And that's a problem. I mean, that's something that at some point we're going to need to address, and I think we've been trying to address that. And I think every town in the region has old clay pipes that are falling apart. And unfortunately, the sewer rate users are paying to have clean water treated. So they pay per gallon of whatever it is, but we're paying to have the clean water treated as well. So this is really important stuff that what we're doing here. Thank you.
Is them pipes, when these pumps get installed and everything's running, are these pipes at the max already? I mean, can you just add a bigger pump if we needed it?
So right now, we looked at the existing force main that's there, and essentially we can't get to that maximum that was the design. That said, KSTD says we can accept this much flow. And we looked at, okay, can the existing force main actually physically take that flow? And the answer is no, it cannot. So that's what led to the idea of increasing the capacity of the force mains by adding the additional pipes.
Sure. But my question was, if we needed more eventually, can you just add bigger pumps?
Theoretically, you could put bigger pumps in that could still operate on the force mains. It would just be a matter of KSTD being able to accept that.
Right, right.
Hmm?
One last question through the chair. Sorry. If the capacity that KSTD would allow the town of Winslow to use, if they were to ever upgrade their system and allow, I'm thinking, 20, 30 years down the road, and say we have an influxion of new residents and we're, getting up there to what the current capacity is. If we were ever allowed more capacity, would we be able to use that existing 12-inch pipe and put pumps on that so we're actually doing 3 force mains across?
Yeah, you could. There would be retrofits that would need to happen at that point, piping retrofits that would need to happen. Probably the approach at that would be look at just putting in bigger pumps to start with until you're maximizing the safe flow that you could put through the new 16-inch force mains. And then if you wanted to go even higher, then yes, theoretically you could use the 12-inch with some piping adjustments as
Okay.
well. Or you could just open the valve and use the 12-inch as well. That would give you a little bit more.
Okay, thank you.
I guess we're all set.
Okay, well, thank you again, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Curly, you want this? Thank you, good job.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a presentation by Scrap Dogs.
Well, you're not gonna be able to zoom because the zoom's down.
Right. You don't have a USB?
Say that again.
Could I email you our presentation?
You can.
I have.
It's eBowman, okay, Winslow-ME.
Yep.
.gov.
Sorry, I have so many questions.
Okay. I get it.
We also have some handouts for council members. Are those appropriate to hand out too?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That one is stuck together.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Monday.
If you need an extra.
So far.
There we go.
Okay.
We should have enough here.
Thank you.
I just counted wrong.
Is this handout the same as the presentation?
A lot of the same information. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a different form. Oh. Yeah, let me see if I can get my head out of the way here.
The TV's never on.
At least y'all can see it. So, thank you so much for taking some time to listen to us this evening. We're really excited to be here. My name is Davis Saltonstall,
I'm Tessa Rosenberry.
and we are Scrap Dogs Compost. We're a new curbside food waste collection service that has just started service for the Kennebec Valley. The next slide, please. So,
So our mission as a small business is to divert food waste from landfills and incinerators and put it to better use through composting. Composting is an excellent way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It's also a great way to reduce the amount of material going into landfills and incinerators. And it also helps build a community consciousness around sustainable practices and what we can do in our day-to-day lives to reduce emissions. and slow down climate change. So how does our service work? There are other services like ours. You might have heard of others in the state. Effectively, we collect food waste from homes, businesses, schools, office buildings, you name it. Whoever is producing food scraps, we'll take them. We take them out to our facility in Washington, Maine. We compost them. We mix them with sawdust, wood shavings, manure, other good stuff. And we return that finished product to gardeners and farmers in the area. We return it to our customers, and then we sell whatever we have left. So who are our customers? Right now, about 3/4 of our customers are pickup subscribers. So they pay for us to come to their home or come to their business, collect their scraps, and then bring them compost back. The other quarter of folks are drop-off subscribers. So they subscribe, they get a bucket, they bring it to a local drop-off site, they swap it out for a fresh one, and they get compost back delivered there if they like it. This is one of our buckets out in the world. This is one of our drop-off sites, which we'll talk a little bit more about. This one's located in Rockport, Maine. And what goes in the bucket? So unlike backyard composters, we'll collect any food waste. So that includes meat, dairy, bones, coffee grounds, citrus, other things that you don't necessarily put in your backyard composter. We'll take it. However, because we are certified for organic use, by MOFGA, we don't accept compostable or biodegradable plastics, like those green plastic bags you see around. We also don't collect lined paper materials, so coffee cups, takeout containers, that kind of thing. You might have heard a lot about PFAS, those forever chemicals. Unfortunately, those are often used in those coated paper products, so we do not accept those. But any food waste is fair game. And then you get compost back. These are, you can kind of see our little sacks full of compost. So we'll deliver each customer back up to half a yard per year, either in sacks for free, or we can deliver in bulk for a small delivery fee. And then this is our pricing for home pickups, business pickups, or drop-off services. We give a little bit of a discount if you get it picked up every week. We also have a nonprofit discount so that schools and other nonprofits can make it a little more affordable.
25% for nonprofits.
Not too shabby.
Yeah, so why are we here tonight? If not just to give a sales pitch, but to also talk about the ways we can work together to divert food scraps from landfills and incinerators and make sure that y'all aren't paying for that really valuable resource of food waste to go to a landfill or to get burned. One of the ways that we could really use help is by amplifying some of the communications around this program. We need to let people know that it's happening. Some suggestions we may have for council or what we would like to work with y'all on are potentially listing our services on your website, posting or letting our flyers be available in public spaces, declare support for the program, or host a town hall informational session specifically about compost and curbside composting that we may offer, should you be interested in those communication methodologies. One of the other areas we'd like to explore is hosting a drop-off site. So as shown before, we like to put drop-off sites at municipal areas or at transfer stations in other parts of our service area so that folks can have access to that drop-off subscription. We also can partner that subscription drop-off with a public drop-off. So there are really two ways that we can have a drop-off station. If you want to go to the next slide. So having subscription-only drop-off for folks to swap out for clean buckets and to get compost back. But then also to have a public drop-off site where folks can bring their own container, empty it into. I think you might actually already have a site like this here outside the library. We don't want to detract from that. We'd like to expand the impact of that by offering more options for folks to get clean buckets and compost back. Next slide. If the town is interested in making this program even more accessible, besides just having customers, businesses or homes pay for a subscription, we could talk about subsidizing those subscriptions on a per individual or per company basis, or talk about ways to, measure the amount of food waste that we're diverting from your waste stream, and then with a tip fee of some sort, return that the value that the town is receiving back to our customers in the town at a discount. We like to explore ways just to make the service as accessible as possible and open to many different ways of partnership with the municipality. The final slide, if the town really wanted to go whole hog, I have to put this in here just because it's one of the things that we dream of are, curbside collection services that go town-wide and are contracted for on behalf of all residents. Again, not something that we're saying you should do, but if you would like to consider that as the most accessible option to divert food scraps, we would also be open to that conversation. Last slide is just a big old thank you. We really appreciate you having us in here to talk a little bit about our program, and we're happy to take any questions.
If I may, through the chair, we have a food waste collection program right now, and we're probably, I would say we're not breaking even on it. I know that the biggest portion, we have some out here at the high school, maybe a bucket or two. I'm not sure what the frequency is anymore. It was once a week, I believe now, but I'm not entirely sure. But the real money is in the school system, that's where, so what liability as far as cost to the town, if you put up, right now, we're kind of paying, subsidizing some of our scrap system right now. What would be the cost to the town with your system?
It really depends. I am hesitant to say exactly what we would charge the municipality. We like to make sure that usually we do that on a per ton basis.
Well, so it looks like the system you have out front now is large, publicly accessible cans where people can bring their scraps, dump them, and then you pay by weight or pay by volume for the collection, or just a regular
Like
collection
pay
fee?
per pickup.
I think it's more of a delivery type of
Okay.
cost. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
if they're gonna cost, and then depending on the tonnage that we have,
Yeah.
then, we have a rate, and the more tonnage you have, the less rate it is in
Gotcha.
cost to municipality.
Okay. Probably we would look at something similar to that. As David said, we're not trying to compete with that program. We want to make sure that's successful. If we can offer a better option, we
Yeah.
will. I think largely the benefit that we would hope to provide would be more towards the subscription side of things, which wouldn't put the
Right.
fiscal onus on the town. It would put it onto the subscribers, and then
Yeah.
the town, like Davis was saying, could contribute either subsidizing that program or just getting the word out. In terms of schools, if we were to have other locations that we picked up from, that would largely depend on that would largely be a per pickup fee, depending on what the kind of regular volume is.
Yeah, and the per pickup fee for schools right now, I think on our end, just because it's public information, that's like $22 per pickup for about 120 gallons worth every week.
Which is about 4 of those big rolling trash cans.
Yeah. And again, open to discussing different rates. When you're getting into quoting prices, we just really want to make sure the program succeeds. So.
We are flexible.
I think that would have to be up to you, Ella, right, to meet and to discuss what we have for pricing now versus what we have, if the council would be interested in expanding this program to some extent.
We're at time, right?
Yep, fine, that's all I've got.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You're a Maine-based business?
Yes, sorry.
Should have been in our intro.
Yeah, we live in Rockland and serve Thompson to Belfast on the coast and Waterville to Hollowell in the Kennebec Valley.
Thank you.
We were founded in 2018 and have been serving the coast since then, and we just this past year this past season really expanded to the Kennebec Valley. So we're really excited to be here.
How's it working down there?
Not too shabby. Yeah, we're up to about 600 customers total. Started with, a dozen, mostly because Davis grew up in Rockport and his friends and family thought it was cute. So we've come a long way since then.
If I may, through the chair, question? So Rockland is your starting municipality? Currently with your service in Rockland, how many drop-off spots do you currently have?
Oh,
5?
Yeah.
5 total sites, 4 of which are at transfer stations, which does make sense considering people are already bringing their waste. Obviously, we know that you guys don't have a transfer station. In Waterville, we're at the Public Works site. So
Just one in Waterville?
just one
Yeah.
in Waterville so
Okay.
far.
And how long have you been with Waterville?
Since May? Yeah.
Okay,
So just for the summer.
thank you.
Well, thank you, folks. You're at your, at your time.
Yeah,
Thanks so
appreciate it. Have a great evening,
Thank
everybody.
Thank you.
I would like, if you guys don't mind, I know you mentioned us putting things on our Facebook page and our website. Is that something that you can do?
We can talk about that, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, reports of committees and commissions, the town manager's report.
Okay, thank you, Audrey. I'm gonna make this quick. This is probably my longest report that I'll have for a while, and it's only because it's my first report. Dear members of the Winslow Council and citizens of Winslow, it's my pleasure to present to you my first manager's report as a newly appointed Winslow manager. The town of Winslow is a vibrant and important community within our region. With over 250 years of history, Winslow is a home to many families who are proud, lifelong managers. Many of the residents have generations of history of living within this town. As with any town, the 3 of our largest concerns are transparency, services, and staffing. Like our personal lives, municipal costs of operations continue to rise. Fuel, electricity, parts and pieces, insurances, and people power increase every single year. We can't stop that. Most of the time, cutting services is not the answer. I believe the answer is to find ways to generate additional property taxes. This involves new commercial and residential development, finding creative ways to ferret out additional revenues, and building public trust and a sense of place within our towns. Accomplishing this goal requires council support, experienced staffing, and public involvement. Personally, I strongly believe it's our responsibility as public servants to be keenly aware of the tax money that we spend, all the while providing the mandated and needed services that are required of a modern, full-service town. It's critical that we provide these services frugally and efficiently. A major issue facing municipalities today is finding staff capable of specialized jobs required to operate a town. It has come to a point where people just do not want to work in a field that requires property taxes for a paycheck, and often the wrath of critical public opinion. Municipalities have gone to the extreme of hijacking experienced public employees from neighboring towns for all departments. People don't graduate from school saying, I want to be a tax assessor, or a code enforcement officer, or a town clerk. These jobs offer no glamour whatsoever. They often are combative in nature. Between drugs, mental illness, and current politics, our police officers are mistreated almost every day. Just a typical traffic stop generates an argument. Firefighters and police officers have become nomadic. They have found to be in such high demand that towns are willing to go to financial extremes to hire somebody from the next town over. Our public works employees are often plowing snow for extended periods of time. Plowing snow in a vehicle weighing up to 75,000 pounds at 2 a.m. in the morning after a long day requires a special person. Telephone poles are very expensive when you break them, and it happens when you're exhausted. Plowing snow at 2 o'clock in the morning, in the middle of the wintertime, when that snow hitting your windshield is like being hypnotized. I know because I've done it. It used to be if you worked for a municipality, you knew that you were not going to make a lot of money, but you were going to have good benefits and would be treated well. That's all changed. We are now financially competing with private sector jobs just to keep our experienced staff in. It's cheaper to keep experienced employees than it is to train new people. I believe that we're now at a point in time when we need to seriously talk about regionalization with some of our services. These are hard conversations to have, but if we're going to keep our cost of operations down, we need to begin to look at different and uncomfortable situations. The past 4 weeks, I've been immersed in learning the town's operating systems, budget systems, town ordinances, policies, meeting staff, and holding many conversations with residents. October 12th, I was involved in a planning meeting regarding Phase 1 of the Chafee Brook sewer crossing. October 17th, I was involved with interviewing several applicants for the position of the Deputy Fire Chief. October 18th, I met with Affinity LED to discuss lighting for 2 Cent Bridge and sports fields. October 25th, we started open union discussions with the fire and public works departments. October 31st, I met with FEMA regarding the debris at the Fort Halifax Park that qualifies for reimbursement. November 1st, meeting with Public Works Director Paul and Ranger Construction regarding that debris field. I'd like to take a moment and recognize one of our employees. I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize Winslow's town clerk, Audra Fleury. Over the past few weeks, I had the opportunity to witness Audra's ability to navigate and guide Winslow's November election process. In today's world of political divide, ongoing cyber threats, security issues, and various other complexities that are now associated with elections, coupled with the fact that this is Audra's first election in Winslow's town clerk, what I witnessed was nothing less than outstanding. Audra's calm personality, intelligence, and ability to utilize her resources helped guide her through the process with very little, if any, problems. Congratulations, Audra, and job well done. I was really impressed. In closing, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about our outgoing town manager, Erica LaCroix. I've had the pleasure of working with Erica as a neighboring town manager for the past 3 years. And most recently, Erica has been my mentor. By teaching me the operational processes for Winslow. Over the past years, I've come to respect the depth of intellectual knowledge that Erica brings to the table as a manager. Her varied experience in municipal world allows her to navigate the complexities of our job. Training a new manager with the ropes of a different town is no easy task. Operating systems are always different, departments operate differently, and personalities are never the same. Erica remained committed to her task at hand, and I feel that I received the training necessary to take over as town manager of Winslow. Thank you, Erica. I look forward to our continued working relationship. Thank you, folks. And I look forward to working with all of you. My door is always open. If you have any concerns, please stop by and stay high, and love to talk to you.
Any other department heads want to go over their report?
Good evening, Town Management Councils. I'd like to introduce Mike Murphy, who we picked as our new Deputy Fire Chief. I'm sure most of you know him. He's been around for a long time. Come on in, Mike. Mike has vast years in fire experience, and what's really good is he has several years as a supervisor, so he really understands how to manage people. I'm real confident he'll do a great job in the position he's in. So I just want to congratulate him and thank him for taking the job.
Thank you for taking
Mike's going to talk to you about a call the fire department really did a great job in a few minutes. He's going to also give you a mold update. But before that, I just want to give you an update on the fire department, the police department's accreditation process. We're about halfway through it right now, and they're all working really hard. I think we're going to accomplish it. It looks like we're going to get it done. The good thing about it is there's 142 police departments in the state of Maine, and only 23 are accredited right now. So if they can accomplish this in 6 months, it really is going to show that we're a step above the other people trying to keep the most, with the most updated things that we need to do, which will help so we don't get sued if something goes wrong. So I really want to commend all of them. I also want to commend the fire department. They just completed the fire safety program for the 480 Winslow elementary students. They did a really good job. They spent 2 days up there, and I'm sure most people are familiar with what a great program that is, and they did a great job up there, so I want to thank them also. So I'll turn it over to Mike, and he can update you on mold. And
Good evening. Like I said, I'm Mike Murphy.
I'm the fire chief, deputy fire chief now for Winslow. I'm excited to work with everybody. If anybody has any complaints, concerns, comments, you can get a hold of me at the fire station. One of the things that I really want to put out to you, we had a very difficult call last Friday. Around 6:30, we were called to a residence in Winslow for a mail-in cardiac arrest. Myself and the on-duty crew responded. The on-duty crew went above and beyond the normal, what we would do for a cardiac arrest. We went to the point where we were making our own epi because we ran out, because every time we would push epi, we'd get a heart rate back. And we kept going. And we didn't give up. Unfortunately, the gentleman did pass away, but that was by a doctor's order. When he got to the hospital, he had a pulse on his own. So I just commend some of the crew. Captain Whalen Cap was on that call and in charge, and Kobe Dunsmore was also the paramedics. They're around the track. But it was great. As far as the mold goes, on the 21st, we had a company come in and already do one prior to me becoming deputy chief. They gave an estimate. We all felt it was kind of high, but we have to get rid of the mold. This other company is Mold Brothers. They supposedly advertise that they're the lowest in the state with the most experience. We'll find out. They seem reputable, people that I've talked to, so we'll know. I'm going to ask them about the dehumidifiers, so that way I have a better understanding what we need and how much it's going to cost or whatever. So I will give you that update.
I know you got our reports for police and fire. Any questions at all?
There's money in the budget, your budget right now, right, Lenny, for the mold?
Yes.
And maybe not humidifiers, but there is some money in there somewhere to get that done. That should be the number one priority in
Right.
that building right now.
Right.
There's no question about that.
No, and I understand that, but we also want to do it the right way, not just do it real quick with a, you know what I mean? Just get it in there and do it right so we don't have to continue to pay money over and over again. But we can get, from what I understand, what I've been looking at, is you can get rid of the mold, but if you don't get rid of the humidity in the summer, it's gonna come back, no matter what you do. So, hopefully, we can, some of the dehumidifiers that I looked at were anywhere between 5 for like an indoor unit to as much as a commercial unit that's like $15,000, but that's a roof-mounted unit. Now, if they can tell me I could put a size for the bay in, you know, in each individual room that are $500-600 a piece, we probably could do that as well. You know what I'm saying? To try to at least alleviate some of that.
And that was one of the things that was always dropped last year. They were supposed to do it last year and they never did it. So whatever the reasoning was, I encourage any counselors that want to take a tour of the fire department. I know you did, Dale, and you can see exactly what the problem is. It's pretty evident.
So I'm,
And there are some other things we'll look at, Lenny. We talked the other day with Jonathan?
Jonathan.
Jonathan.
Yeah.
There's some other things that gotta be done over there quick,
mhm.
that I don't think there's a lot of money. But if you can put that stuff together for us, we can get some things done, I think.
Mhm. Is that through the whole building? So it's oops, go ahead. So it's predominantly in our dispatch room, which is right as you walk in, right on the right. The bunk room, and in the shop, pretty much right in that corner. Correct, Waylon? Right in that, like, one square of the area. This summer, I do know that, you know, it's AC'd on the other side of that brick wall, and it was 122 degrees in the bay at one point, with the doors open. So, you're gonna get that clash between that brick wall, you're gonna get mold on one side or the other, so that's what we're gonna try to get
But
rid of.
in
One side of that wall too, couldn't you start that? That's why I've got the mold guys coming in, they're the expert, yes, you probably could, but you need some type of moisture barrier and,
What's the name of the company?
it's actually Mold Brothers.
Mold Brothers?
Yep.
Where are they
Bowden.
Bowden?
Yeah, I believe, Bodenham or Bowden. And then the other company was ServPro, if it serves me correct, ServPro.
You get two different quotes.
I'm gonna try to, so those were the two names that like popped out, like everybody said, and according to their, obviously you can go by anybody's webpage, but they're supposed to be the lowest, they'll beat people's prices to get your business, so. Sure.
I'll send them over to you.
Okay, perfect. The more, the more the better, because, when you start looking at mold, every little mom and pop business comes up, but I want somebody that's gonna do it right
Right.
the first time.
And we have 2 employees, one in the fire department and one in the police department, that's actively looking for grants. I feel as public safety director, the worst building we have right now is the fire department. And if we can get a grant to try to push that along, it's really in rough shape. Like I said, I encourage you to come take a tour.
Yeah, come and take a tour. So I talked to our grant person. We can get, so I've talked to our grant person and he's talked to your grant person. They can find a whole bunch for law enforcement and a whole bunch for the fire service, but no combined, right? So you can't get one and not leave out the other. You just can't get a grant for both because it's all site specific. So if anybody has any leads, that would be great too. If anybody knows somebody or that is good with grants that way as far as getting them together.
Any other questions, reference to the report between? Okay.
Just one, and I talked to you, I've talked to everybody about it, it's just, and it's an area-wide problem, it's just the lack of paramedics for the central Maine area, and I know people are working on that problem, but I'm gonna keep repeating it, is that I think it's a concern.
It's a concern for everybody. Unless you're gonna, and to be quite frank and honest with you, unless you're gonna offer somebody $30 an hour, you're not gonna get somebody to leave their job now and come to Winslow. You can try, but we have the per diems as well. Yes, but as far as somebody to leave Waterville to come to Winslow, or but they all have their own jobs, so it's all hit or miss. They all have their own second, third, fourth jobs, so that's the way fire and EMS has always been. So to get one lined up every day is not as easy as one would think. Because they all have they either have their own personal businesses they attend to, or they're working.
How often do we use them now?
Once to 3 times a week.
You're doing that now?
Yeah, and that's offering it open all week long. That's all we're getting. So, at $30 an hour.
So many firefighters on, or do you do them no matter how many firefighters are on?
No, right now we have 2 firefighter openings, and I have 1 candidate that's not a paramedic.
Not even per shift?
3, plus a per diem. Every 24/7, if I can get a per diem. 3 people if I don't.
So you're running 3 firefighters, and then you're calling in a paramedic?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The goal is to try to get our people trained, which we've been talking about that today.
Right. We have 1 in the paramedic program now. We have 1 in the advanced. You can't go, so there's not too many programs running right now, and it's a funny term, but it's 0 to hero is what they call it. So there's no program right now that's going from EMT to paramedic all in 1 schooling. So you're only getting EMT, you're getting your AEMT, and then you gotta wait. You may not get into this semester, it may be next year.
You have advanced right now?
Yes,
And how much schooling is from advanced to paramedic? Is it
18 months,
from advanced to paramedic?
yeah. It's still 18 months, 18 months, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So,
Amount of clinical hours that they gotta put in and everything else they
it's
gotta do.
18 months, and that's the only schooling that you can find that much. It's 18 months. That's a set parameter everywhere. So, So, much, they should be making $30 an hour.
You don't,
Just
if you
even-
ever apply for a paramedic job and go through it for 18 months, you don't have a home life.
Right.
I can tell you that.
Even as an advance, I had to do it was pretty close to, was it 180 hours of clinical for an advanced school? Yeah. So it was work shifts, go to the hospital, work 12-hour shifts, go home and sleep, go back to work, go back and do clinicals, and ride ambulance and hospital. And money, right, because most people that do this could be working their other job, but they're doing this instead to advance themselves. So, we good? Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, public comment.
So I asked,
Any other department heads?
is there any other department heads that'd like to speak?
Peter's not here.
Motion. Want to approve the minutes? I mean, the reports.
Yeah, motion to accept the reports.
Second.
Roll call vote, Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Aquarian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drapo.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. We also have the Finance Committee report and the financial reports that are attached to the agenda. So public comment.
Anything anybody wants to talk about that's not on the agenda? Up to 3 minutes?
I'd like to know what's going on, Louis Bourgeois. I'd like to know what's going on with like the railroad tracks down on Bay Street. They just brought in more railroad ties. They haven't picked up their old ones that they've been there for 20 years. Shouldn't that be taken care of?
Yeah.
That's what that,
It's their property, Louis, and to try to force a railroad to do anything they don't want to do. I mean, Paul, do you want to even attempt to chime in on this, or?
Not really, I mean, it's their property, and we have no control over it, and I can't even go patch it, so.
but it's my property too, when you guys are telling me I have to keep my lawn mowed. And that's my property.
I don't, they have federal authority, so.
Well, all that stuff is contaminated.
Oh, I know, we don't disagree, just.
We agree with you, we can't,
Yeah, I know.
hands are tied, they have federal leeway to do about anything they want to do.
It's just a shame. I hate to see that stuff sitting there.
Yeah, yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Table, go ahead to table business.
Okay, tabled business, order number 39-2023, providing for authorization for the town manager to sign the attached amendment to the municipal study, facilities study contract with Haley Ward.
So move.
Second.
We're gonna leave that table, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless anybody wants to pull it off.
We're staying on the table.
Yep.
Okay, on to old business. Ordinance number 8-2023, providing for pursuant to 22 MSR Section 43051. The municipal officers hereby enact the attached municipal general assistance ordinance with appendices in its entirety.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
None?
None? Nope.
Okay.
This is the second reading.
This is the second reading, yes.
Yep.
Roll call, Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Aquarian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drapo.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Running out of space here. Okay, ordinance number 9-2023, providing for the restriction of parking on the south side of Stobie Street.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. This is also a second reading.
Actually, the only thing I got for discussion is to let the public know that right now, if you have vehicles parked on both sides opposite each other, it's very hard to move fire, fire equipment through there. And that's why we wanted basically outlaw parking on the south side. Thank you.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah.
Roll call vote, Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Aquarian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drapo.
Yeah.
Motion passes 7-0. And order number 37-2023, providing for authorization for the town manager to sign amendment number A8 to the contract for engineering services for the Chaffee Brook Pump Station project with Wright Pierce per the attached document.
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
Again, that's the second reading.
Dale Macklin,
Yes.
Jerry Querian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drapo.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay. On to new business. So I still have to,
Bill.
Oh, that's okay.
I still have to read it,
Okay.
right?
I don't know.
We're-
Does she still have to read this one?
This
If
week,
you're gonna go and, table it now.
so just
Are we-
table.
Are we gonna table it, or are you just gonna pull it to the next meeting? If
Well,
we're gonna table it, we're gonna read it.
Okay, let's table it.
Okay.
Read it.
Okay. Order number 40-2023, providing for authorization for the town manager to sign the attached agreement with a blank to upgrade and maintain the security camera systems at the town office complex for an amount not to exceed blank amount.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
I make a motion to table this. The three bids that were attained are outdated. Are outdated. We didn't move quick enough on them. So none of the three companies will adhere to their figures. So again, I'm making a motion to table this so Ella can look into this further and get new bids.
Second the motion.
Okay, so a roll call vote to
Table it.
table, okay.
Yeah.
Dale Macklin,
Yes.
Jerry Querian,
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drapo.
Yes.
So motion to table passes 7-0. Order number 41-2023, providing for authorization for the town manager to sign the attached employment agreement with Michael Murphy to begin performing the services of deputy fire chief.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
The only thing I'd like, do we need to forego the second reading on this one?
It would be nice if we did, because that way I can.
Okay, getting back to, do we have a discussion on the motion? There being none?
Okay, roll call vote, Dale Macklin,
Yes.
Jerry Querian,
Yes.
Ray Karen,
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan
Yes.
and Peter Drapo.
Yes.
So motion passes 7-0.
I make a motion, we forego the second reading, please.
Yeah, okay, and that was Jeff.
Second.
Yes, that was Jeff made the motion to forego
To
the
waive.
second reading, and Dale seconded it.
Okay, any discussion on that?
Nope.
Dale, roll call vote, Dale Macklin,
Yes.
Jerry Querian,
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan
Yes.
and Peter Drapo.
Yes.
So motion to waive second reading passes 7-0.
Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Table this next one.
You just want to scrap it?
Wanna
Then
scrap
it
it.
doesn't even have to be mentioned.
Okay,
Well,
so,
you gotta withdraw it.
so I have to read it first.
No.
Just- Ella withdraws it.
Withdraw it now.
On to discussion.
So now we're on to discussion items, discontinuing part of the Wyman Bog Road.
I asked to have this placed on the agenda via a call from Tom Averill, and Timmy Willett. Would like to get up, Tom?
Sorry, I'm getting old. Thank you, council, for hearing me tonight. My name is Tom Averill. I've been living on the end of the Wandenbach Road since 1984. I'm the last house on the left, just like the movie. My wife Debbie has been with me since 2000, living out there. Something I've been dealing with, and a lot of the neighbors have been dealing with over the years, is motorcycles and four-wheelers that feel they have a racetrack coming up out of the swamp, disregarding when my kids were little, they were going back and forth to Timmy's house, and Timmy's kids were going back and forth to my house to play with each other. So one of us would have to watch the front yard to listen for these. As my kids grew up and went away, that seemed to go away. Now I'm dealing with four-wheelers destroying the lawn that I take care of that is actually the old road. A couple weeks ago, I came home. Timmy come over and says, "Hey, did you see the damage?" I said, "What damage?" He said, "There was a vehicle down here that did donuts. They started down where the Jersey barriers were put by the town, did one huge donut, came all the way up, spinning their tires, destroying the center of that old road, destroying the lawn, and did another big donut and went back down through." It's an ongoing thing, and it pissed me off. Excuse my French. But, I tried to make our properties look good. I maintain Timmy's property for him because he has a bad back. I take care of other neighbors. And then to have somebody feel that they can come up and disrespect my so-called property, but what I do for hard work to maintain it and make it look good, and think nothing of it. Just as the grass seems to come back, they come back up and they destroy it. Usually at night, early evening areas when it happens. So that really ticked me off. So I called Pete. Pete come out with Paul Breton, and they looked at it, and I said, "What can we do?" And a suggestion was made that this gets put on your agenda to close that part of the road from where my house is back to the Pond Road, and then let that land go back to the abutting landowners. That way they'll give us a little bit of control over trying to keep people out of there. At least we would know if we let somebody in who it is. But, it's just annoying. No respect for what people are doing. They definitely would not like it if I went and I did that on their front lawn with my tractor. So that's what I'm complaining about, and I'd like to see that road get closed finally after all these years living there. And the road's been closed since in the 50s, and nothing's ever been done with it. So I don't think it'd be a problem to close that out.
Yeah, I went out there with Peter a couple of weeks ago to look at it and stuff. So my understanding is that if we discontinue that portion of the South Point portion, half the road would go to you, the other half would go to the abutter on the other side.
Yep.
The abutter on the other side isn't the one that's doing the damage to the road
No,
itself,
it's not
so
Timmy.
that would eliminate that, that would become then private property.
Yeah. Yeah, because the town already put Jersey barriers up to keep people going down there after an incident happened down in the swamp with a gun being shot into a truck radiator. So I don't see why we couldn't do something different and at least give the neighbors, the abutting landowners, some sort of control over that from happening. If I may, through the chair. Approximately how far are we talking distance-wise from?
Couple hundred
the
feet.
Jersey barriers to where you want?
Yeah, a couple hundred feet.
Is there currently anything now, like stakes or anything, so that the general public would know that, or how do you plan on, are you gonna put up a fence, or what are you gonna put to
We
basically
would-
prevent the general public?
Timmy and I have talked about possibly putting some sort of a barrier in front of the Jersey barriers, because that's where his property ends, right where the Jersey barriers have been put. There's 3 Jersey barriers there. Something that would be put there that
would keep people from going around. Right now, they can go around one of the barriers and get up and down the road and down through the swamp. Plus, we'd be able to post it as private property and have something to stand on. Because I've chased motorcycles, I've chased four-wheelers, Timmy's done the same. And it's, you know, it's an ongoing battle. And, you know.
You're almost there though, a couple more radiators.
Couple more radiators? No. No.
I would just be concerned with anyone that might be trespassing that wouldn't see the post or see the additional barriers or any kind of preventative
If there's-
actions that they end up being injured or harmed.
Right now, Timmy and I have maintained a 55-gallon drum with a stop sign in it to stop people from going down that hill, and then one of us having to pull them back up because they can't get up the hill with their vehicle. That barrel is marked with reflective tape, DOT tape, and we would do something similar to that to make it reflectorized, make it so somebody would see it. Because I know we're responsible for that.
Do you have to do anything at the other end of the road to stop this?
I understand Mr. Pouliot years ago put up a fence,
There is one down
a gate, because people were going in and dumping on his property.
The gate's
Yeah.
still there.
And that's what I understood.
The gate's there.
And
But
so,
people
but,
can still go around that.
oh yeah, and I understand that, but I'd like to have a little bit more control.
I don't blame you.
Now, this road right now, Paul, is what? Is it abandoned?
I'd say legally it's abandoned, we haven't been maintenance in probably over 40 years, so by lack of maintenance, it's abandoned.
Okay. What do we have to do legally to shut it off and give it to the adjacent property owners?
Under a fairly recently enacted statute, the town actually has to vote. It used to be that if it hadn't been maintained for, I think it was 30 years, that it was abandoned. But now, you actually have to vote on that matter. And the legislature created a rather lengthy list of steps you have to follow to be able to abandon a road, which involves notification to anybody who abuts the section of road to be abandoned and so forth. Are we sure that it actually is a public road?
Always has been.
Always has been, because I've asked questions ever since I've been there in '84. It's still a town road. I've gone and talked to people at the office about it, and I've been told, no, somebody might want to open that up and develop that property, so we're going to keep the road. And that's the answers I've got.
It's all bog, is it?
It's all bog, it's mostly bog down there, and it's like, you know, people tried to build a house down there.
A house on stilts.
Meaning, let's answer this question first, Timmy, then. Town, a general election, or the council votes on abandoning?
The council would vote on the abandonment.
Okay, so Paul had a good point the other day, too. By this still legally, or supposedly the town still owns this, owns the right-of-way through there, we have some sort of a liability in there, don't we?
We have a pretty broad immunity from suit under the Maine Tort Claims Act, so that's not a terribly big concern of mine, that somebody's going to get hurt and then somehow be able to sue the town over it. But
Are you a lawyer saying that people don't sue over nothing?
you anticipated what I was about to say. There are plenty of lawsuits filed with no legal basis to them, okay? But I'm just saying under the Maine Tort Claims Act, the municipality has a pretty broad immunity from suit. And in this case, of course, we're not doing anything. It's not like we're improperly, we maintained it and dug a ditch and didn't put a sign up or something. We're just not doing anything.
No, but, Tim, what was your question? I'm sorry.
I have the means for the material to put up a fence on our end and paint it fluorescent yellow. I already got the paint. It'll still be accessible for walkers and, buses and stuff like that. It's not like it's gonna be shut down. We just wanna stop the cars and the motorcycles and the dirt bikes so the kids can play and be safe.
Oh.
They've been up, we've had people dumping trash out there, washer machines.
Well, apparently it's been a problem because at some point in time, Paul went down there and put Jersey barriers up.
Right.
So, I mean, and
And they've moved them, and I've had to put them back. So they have access to keep changing and keep moving them, and,
they're moving Jersey barriers.
oh yeah, and they drive their excavator all the way up from the other side.
Perfect.
And we've tried to contact the police, and they say there's nothing they can do because it's town land, and there's no trespassing signs, there's no nothing to stop them. There's nothing that we can put up that's legal to stop them from doing it.
Jim, the person that has the excavator, isn't he a property owner on that road?
On the far end,
On the far end.
and they already have their access from the other end.
Right.
You know, there's no reason technically for them to be up on that end.
Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, really quick, I know we've faced this problem where we have town-owned property, and what we've done in the past is we've done a quick deed. So we have the landowners to pay for the surveying and the surveying, and I can't remember what else, and 15% of the assessed value of the property. Some formula that we do to make it advantageous for, you know, because there's not a lot of property tax in that type of thing, and we want, if
I
we
think you get
decide to
enough
do that,
tax out of me
then-
as it is now.
Huh?
I think you get enough tax out of me as it is now.
That's another subject.
That's very, very
But
fair
no,
point.
no,
Yeah.
I'd
I
be
walked
willing to
into
do
that one,
that.
there's no question. But that's what we've done in the
Hang on,
past.
hang on.
We've had 50% of the assessed value of the land. We give to you as a break, and then you guys do the quick deed and the surveying, pay for that
Right,
cost.
right.
That's fine,
No.
that's fair.
No?
No, no.
That's what we've done in the past, that's all I know.
Well, it hasn't been done on my watch.
Okay, that's fine.
There is a fairly recent state statute. It used to be easier. And now we have to go through a number of steps, which involves notification to all people who abut on that road. They have a right to make a claim for damages, and there are several more steps than that. I think it might be worth it I'd be very happy to meet with Paul to take a look at it, and perhaps we can come up with a less formal way of addressing the problem. And if not, then we can outline the process for a statutory discontinuance.
I would like to do what the property owners want to do.
The people that we're having a problem with don't even own up to them barriers. There's another person in between the barriers and him.
Right, but if we go through this process, Tim, the way that Bill is explaining it, I believe all adjacent property owners to that road
Yeah.
would have to be notified.
Right.
And then we would invite them to a meeting or what have you, have a public discussion on it. At that point, we look into how we legally abandon that road. I don't see any sense in keeping that road in town possession. Do you, Paul? Do you see any reason at all?
It's been 50 years since anybody's used it other than trails. I think the town will never know. How much road does the town own there?
From where my house is to the South Pond Road.
Okay, so I believe that is how we should move forward with this. If you want to take a look at it with Paul.
I would like to do that just because it involves damage hearings. If we're gonna discontinue a road, people can make a claim for damages. I don't know the layout. I don't know how many landowners there are. I don't know what the different accesses are. I'd like to at least know that information before we take a next step.
We went down to the town and looked it over. I believe it's 3, 4. There's the Porias, there's the Abrils.
Pouliot's.
There's the Pouliot's, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And Mr. Willett.
Yeah.
And there's
And
one more that bought Conant's property.
Oh, that's what I mean. I don't know. See,
Yeah.
we're adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 so far here.
Right, there's 4. 5?
Yeah.
There's 5,
Oh,
okay.
And I don't know anything about it, so.
Okay, well,
yeah.
can we look into this?
Yes,
Great.
yes.
Does the town own that whole road? All the way to the other road?
Apparently.
And
So I don't think that should
you
be
might
given up.
not,
What's that?
I don't think that should be given up.
You don't want to give it up?
I don't think it should be. I think the town wants to grow, don't we? That could be a road with houses on it.
Louis, that's pure bog. That's pure bog.
Which is why it's called the Bog Road.
Louis, case in point, down at the bottom of the hill where my property stops and where Maintenance Plus property stops, there's a parcel of land in there, 10 acres, 10, 11 acres. It got sold, the people that bought it
I can look at the tax map.
didn't go through the proper permits with the DEP. They put a road right alongside the bog. They put in a well, and they started the foundation. Then the DEP got involved, shut them down, and then it went up for sale again.
Well, he's saying 5.
So,
That's why I have to look.
you know, there's no way that you're gonna build alongside that bog. And the reason why that road was stopped from my house, actually, it was stopped at the Maple Ridge Road to the South Pond Road, because the town got sick and tired of the beavers building dams and taking the road out. So in the early 70s, the guy I bought my house from convinced the town to let him reopen that road from the Maple Ridge Road to where my house is. I think it's called the Old Farm Hill or something like that. It was an old farm. Larry Godin dug out the old foundation because the farmhouse burned down, built the existing house that we live in there. And he bought other land there so his family could have a house place there. Now he's deceased, his wife is deceased, and the land has been sold off to other people. But that's, in a nutshell, the story of that area out there.
Okay. I didn't know how bad it was. I've been out there.
I haven't been to the South Pond Road for years. My kids and I used to walk through there just for something to do years and years ago, and I know the beavers came back in, and they built a dam again, so there's a good portion of road, it's underwater. Matter of fact, Timmy and I went down 3 years ago, and was part of a rescue mission for a horse that got spooked, jumped off into the swale grass, and it was right up above his belly in the swale grass, right in the muck. Yeah, so, it's nothing but swampland.
Okay, we're good, guys.
Okay,
Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll move forward with it.
okay. Thank you, Council.
Let's-
We'll move forward with it with the intent of seeing if we can abandon.
Thank you.
And go from there. Can be very hard to abandon a road. More than even, the next item. Well,
Next
Okay.
item, Margaret.
Next item for
I'm
discussion.
still, point of order, I still got a right,
Yeah, sign those.
no.
Hold on, I'll
You
take
might
it.
have to check with DOT right away, the property maintenance.
There you go.
I believe this is just a local road.
They
And
probably.
again, I know nothing about it, you've asked me to look into it, and then I toward discontinuance, and I will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay,
We all set then?
Yep.
go ahead.
Okay, changing the ordinance to require only one reading on an order. And that was, Jeff asked that to be on the agenda.
Bill, you're gonna look at that, right?
Well, we haven't.
Of the ordinance,
I-
rewording the ordinance for certain things.
Want me to speak? Sure. I sent each counselor a copy of the ordinance where we've stated what acts are by resolution and what acts are by order. And by definition, a resolution is something read once. An order is read twice. So really the question is, out of all of the 8 different items which are listed as being, are listed as requiring an order, do you wish to change any of those? That's really what the question is. So, if you do, you'd be amending our ordinance to eliminate one or more categories.
Or we could add some, Bill.
And you could add some. Yeah, I mean, the charter states that the council will determine by ordinance which matters are heard by resolution and which by order. And the council adopted such an ordinance, looks like about 14 years ago. Because there was confusion up to that time. You know, why is this an order? Why is this a resolution? Nothing had ever been specified. And you did that. If you wish to change it, that's your prerogative.
So we can come up with a proposed ordinance amendment,
you can review it. And I think what we might want to do is add and subtract and refine that more to what the needs are of the council's decisions on small items.
That's your prerogative. It was adopted 14 years ago. Maybe it needs to be changed. That's really a council decision. I mean, obviously, you're not going to do the budget as a resolution. You're going to have 2 readings. I don't think the public would stand for that. And there'll be certain other items which you are going to insist remain as orders just because of the size of them, so the public has an adequate opportunity to comment. But there may be other matters there where we require an order presently that we could change to a single. That's, again, council prerogative.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
So you work on that, John.
Take your very own copy?
Sure.
That was
Okay.
No, that was my copy.
No, I just needed that number, because I was looking
Yeah.
for it. I couldn't find
I
it.
always have a hard time finding it.
Yeah, I have a hard time with that website. Okay, discussion item, changing meetings from 1 per month to 2 per month. That was Ella.
Can I speak to that? Part of the reason why I wanted to go and talk about this was with your orders where you have to vote twice on these big bills, it takes a long time to get somebody paid. One of the reasons. Today's agenda was a short agenda, and here we are, almost 8 o'clock. We're gonna be here until 9 o'clock by the time we're done. It would shorten that up as well. It would give a chance for the public to participate a little bit more than what they're currently able to at once a month. This is a process that I'm accustomed to. With the last town that I worked with, many towns, I don't know too many that are just going once a month. And I think 2 is a healthy way of doing things. It's a little more transparent. And we're coming in with a new group this January, and I think if we're gonna try something like that, it might be a good chance to look at it for January on.
Looking at me.
Waiting for your comment on it.
Question?
I mean, I'm on my way out, so I think that's up to you people that are staying and people that have been elected. If I were staying, I wouldn't have a problem with it. It's gonna cost the town more money. You're gonna have to pay twice the amount to the councilors and twice the amount to Chad to televise.
I don't think it'll be twice the amount, because in the summertime, you typically would only hold 1 meeting a month, like we're still doing it because of
I'm
vacation.
playing devil's advocate.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, no, December, November, it would be the same thing. Your double meetings would be during your winter months in the spring and in the fall.
rest of you chime in. Those that are staying.
Wait.
Yeah, wait.
My concern with that is where we normally have our process of, once we vote something in and it takes 30 days, I know there's that 30-day time requirement for some items. If we're trying to possibly push something along, would we run into that 30-day?
I think it would
Restriction.
require a little bit of a review on the way our processes are. I'm not familiar with that 30 days. I haven't come across that yet.
An ordinance requires 2 readings,
Right,
and there's a 30-day wait period after the second reading.
okay.
And you can't waive the second reading of an ordinance. So it only applies to an ordinance.
Right, but could we change the 30-day wait period so that we could do it within 30 days?
Change the charter.
That's a charter?
Anything that's in the charter would require a charter amendment to
Right.
change. But if you're talking about orders and resolutions, one of the reasons that typically we wait 30 days is that a lot of matters are subject to referendum, and the public has 30 days, I think it's 30 days, to file a petition and get necessary signatures. So sometimes when something's adopted, don't want to go out and bind the town to some contract and then have the public very upset about it, and then suddenly you've got a referendum on it, which could undo the contract. But realistically, I mean, you've got a pretty good idea if something is controversial or not. So, I think you can, I think the town can usually act with confidence within a 30-day period after a resolution or order is passed.
How many towns do you work for, Bill, that have 1 meeting a month besides Winslow?
There are a couple of small towns that are on a town meeting form of government. Fairfield has two meetings. One is a meeting to vote on, and the other is a meeting for information generally. But communities of this size, I would say fairly often have meet twice a month. And the process, if the council's going to change this, at the first meeting, your organizational meeting in January, the council determines when it's going to meet and for its regular meetings, which has traditionally just been once a month. But if the council wishes, it could change that to 2 times a month, or it could change it to 2 times a month and then say June through August, it'll only meet once. Right. Because the council always has the ability to call a special meeting. So even if you were to say we're only going to meet once a month during the summer, if something came up that required a special meeting, the council can call that special meeting to get the second reading in.
I think it's a great idea. I think I think in the summer you don't need to meet twice a month, but I know that January, February, March, April, maybe May, and then back in September where we start getting the workload again, that's very important. I know over the last 3 years, we've had numerous special meetings.
So you got your 2 meetings a month right there.
So, it would prevent that from probably happening as much as it did over the last couple of years. So I think that would be positive, it would keep everybody informed more, and I think that would be, any type of communication where you enhance it, that would be advantageous.
Yep, somebody in the audience.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Brent. Can you get up, please?
I'm gonna ask, can you make it the second meeting, like you said, a meeting like if you need more time as a council to speak about stuff, that you can meet and talk about it and not vote, and still have public notice? If you put it on an agenda each month, is that public notice for the public to be able to attend if they want to? And not all council members have to go to the meeting if they don't want, but if you feel you have to continue from that meeting, you can have that second meeting to finish? Is that?
To answer that.
Go ahead.
Again, it doesn't matter to me, but I think you all ought to talk about it. And I think if you're gonna do it, I think you have the 2 meetings, have public notice put out that you're gonna have 2 meetings a month. But at your January meeting, when you all get sworn in and you elect the council chair, that's the time, as Bill said, to establish the second meeting per month.
But you wouldn't have to go through all the hoops of a regular town meeting if
You
you
wouldn't have to
call it like-
televise it. That's up to you guys.
It doesn't have to be televised, but I'm asking, do you have to go through all the different hoops of just putting it on an agenda? And is putting it on the agenda public notice enough for a second meeting? Excuse me, I thought I was talking, but that's okay.
Hold on. The answer to your question is yes.
Yes, what? You would still have to jump through all the hoops?
No.
I'm confused, I'm so sorry.
If the council decides to meet twice a month, it can decide that that second meeting is going to be in structure and form somewhat different than the first meeting, if that is what it wishes. We are a home rule state. We get to rule our local government the way we deem best, and gives us a lot of flexibility. It's not like mechanically that second meeting has to be identical to the first meeting. Now, before that council can do anything, they have to have 4 councilors here.
Right.
So I'd be careful about sort of making it a come if you'd like, because nobody shows up, then
Well, you don't have to vote on anything, though, that's what I'm saying, if it's just a further discussion, because
Right, and you know what, I think it would be good, for considering that, probably worth having a conversation with the town of Fairfield, because they have a version of that, and see how they do it, how it seems to work for them, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel here.
And if you put it on the agenda, each monthly meeting, would that count as public notice for the public to attend?
Well, we're always going to we always give notice in advance of our meetings. So even though it's been announced ahead of time, for example, everybody knows, as of this last January, that the council is going to be meeting the second Monday of the month. But we still give public notice, because really a notice given in January doesn't really tell people in the summertime too much about having a public meeting. So there's always going to be public notice given.
and public notice could count if you're at tonight's meeting and you said next week we'll be having another?
Yes, actually, that would be adequate. If you, yes, if you, for example, tonight, if there was going to be a special meeting called for next Monday at 7 o'clock or something like that, we've just given public notice of that.
Thank you very much.
Did you,
All I was gonna add to that, if we're gonna have a second meeting, I would like to have the ability to conduct business. I mean, so having it just a forum, I think it would defeat the direction that I'd like to take it in. I am gonna talk with Michelle and find out how it's working with them over in Fairfield.
Because they have a variation on that.
Right. Just, if we have a second meeting where we conduct business, we wouldn't be here so long for a single meeting. I mean, we're 8 o'clock now, and we still
well,
got
a
business.
lot of
to do.
that's my fault, because we were supposed to give only 10 minutes to Wright Pierce,
Right.
but geez, you know, they were informing us on this pump station thing, so
Yeah.
I couldn't say they got only 10 minutes.
But I think that happens
But,
a bit.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Again,
and I think Ella's right. I think if you have a second meeting, you wanna have it with some teeth. I
Yeah.
think that's
Well, it's your
important.
cross to bear.
Yeah,
Deal with
we'll
it in
discuss
January.
that in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, executive session, a motion to enter into an executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 4056E, consultation with legal counsel.
So moved. Second.